online musician. Leah, first of all, let me just ask you, simply stated, how would you define what an online musician is?
An online musician is adding an online component to your music career. So if you are even like a full-time touring musician, that's awesome. I'm not saying to quit that. I would never tell you that. It's literally distributing your music, marketing your music, growing your fan base, doing all the different online digital marketing activities and adding that component to your career, thereby leveraging your time, leveraging your talent, growing your brand worldwide while you're sleeping.
Right.
So that's how I define it.
Well, and that's really good, because I think, and this goes back to mentioning what I did about the other people that are doing something similar, marketing your music and things online, is that people, when they think that the rules have changed because of the internet and social media from the old days of the record labels, it really hasn't changed in terms of the way people are still trying to approach this. And so until they learn that they really have to do a lot of the things that you just described, we're going to talk more about what some of these things are.
Yeah.
It's really not an online musician thing yet. So you mentioned something I thought was really key, which is setting over against a touring only musician.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If somebody's going to make this decision to become an online musician, are you saying they're just adding this component to it? Or in your case, you don't tour? You're having more success, Leah, than probably, I'm going to speak only from the metal community. There's a lot of popular bands, but I guarantee you there's not a single member of any of these recorded artists who are touring and playing at all the big shows. Not any one of them are making the money that you're making.
And let's just distinguish, this is just my music sales. This is not from my coaching academy. Right. Like, I always have to make that distinguishment, because people always on my ads, people are so original, not, and they're just like, oh, I know how you make six figures. You just teach courses on it. I'm like, wow, so original. No one's ever said that to me before. Right. No, it's all separate.
It's an important point of distinction here that you, without touring, okay, are earning more just through your music.
Right.
And again, to make that point, all the haters and everything that are going to accuse you of saying, well, you're just selling all these, how to do this, and so that's how you're making your money. No, she's doing that now because she's making that money from her music and merchandise sales. And so without touring, then you are doing better than some of the more successful touring bands in terms of each member, what they earn. Because I know a lot of guys that are in big bands, and I follow them on social media, and they're right back at the day job when they get off the road from touring. They do it for the love, and they're hoping for obviously something better. But as an exclusively touring musician, that's a very, very difficult nut to crack. So how then can somebody add this online component to what they're doing right now? There's
so many things to add. I mean, you can start with the basics with social media and that sort of thing. I mean, I think every band out there realizes they need to have that, but I don't know if they understand to the extent that they need to add it. I was just telling you, I recently made a very kind of vulnerable, scary post to my fans about some of the health issues I've faced. Any of my students know that I'm really into health. I'm really into fitness, and I've just struggled so bad to meet my goals. And, I've been doing lab tests and all this stuff to try and figure it out. Well, I've never really expressed this to my fans before. I've always tried to maintain an appearance of I'm the same as I was 5 years ago, or I look a certain way. I'm very careful about the photos I post. And I just told them, guys, this is what I've been struggling with. I just have to be transparent and honest with you guys. I really let them in to my vulnerability. And I told them, it's difficult for me to post this. It's scary for me to post this, but I feel that I cannot be an authentic artist without sharing with you what I'm going through. So that's the extent I'm talking about. When I say social media, I don't mean posting posters and little graphics to your next tour. You can do that and you should, but going so much further with it, letting them into who you are for real and being vulnerable with them. It's not easy. It's the internet. So it's very foreign feeling to kind of wear your heart on your sleeve and just put yourself out there. But, beyond social media, there's so much more to it than adding the online component. I mean, we've talked about this in the previous series, from everything from list building, advertising, all the email marketing. I mean, there's so much you can do where once that system is running, it works for you. I just posted a brand new opt-in ad to build my email list. I'm getting very aggressive about building my email list again. I want to add 1,000 people a month to my email list, brand new, fresh people. And the reason is because I plan on doing another album launch at the end of this year. And I'm going to give myself a nice long runway with fresh new people who are interested in what I've got to offer. So I've got that running. I'm getting opt-ins at less than 40 cents each for people to get onto my email list, which in the marketing world is an unbelievable, amazing price. And I always get these prices. That's always what I'm paying for even a brand new ad. And it's because I know my audience online. I know, and these are cold, by the way. These are not current followers. They're cold traffic. They never heard of me before. And they're opting in. I'm sending them emails all about who I am. I'm sending them free music. I'm taking them to, hey, sign up. Here's YouTube. I'm getting them multiple touch points is what we call it. So I'm doing all of this and it's all happening while I'm sleeping. And of course I monitor it. I never want to say it's completely passive. I don't really think that's accurate. You have to monitor it. You have to tweak things. You have to keep your eye on it. But adding this online component, I mean, I don't have the time. There's not enough time in the day or the week or the year for me to go out and literally shake every single person's hand compared to how many tens of thousands of people are seeing my ad every day. That's not humanly possible. And yet I'm building a brand by doing this. So when I say adding an online component, there's many things you can do, but this is just one example. Is having something continually running where it's basically a huge awareness campaign. We need mass exposure. If you're an indie artist and you don't have a label with a huge amount of capital to do it for you, this is an easy, economical, affordable, doable way to do it.
List some of the benefits that this, I mean, the obvious thing, people are going to think of is just, oh, well, I could sell more CDs or maybe I can sell some shirts, but there's a lot more to it that someone, especially as a touring musician, can add by just having this online component working for them.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like first of all, like I just said, I'm always building my audience, right? So the fact, if you're a touring musician, if you just put two and two together here, if you can reach tens of thousands of new people who have never heard your music before, and you can do it for pennies, every single day, do you think that will have an impact on your ticket sales when it comes time to sell that? Right. Do you think that if you learn digital marketing and advertising, that you could sell more tickets or more VIP experiences or more merchandise? Do you think that if you just add 2 + 2 = 4, I can only say that it will enhance everything else you're doing offline.
Right. And if you have if you have a lot of competition, because I've run a venue before and in Dallas, Fort Worth, so that's a very competitive space. And if you have a following and if you are prolific on social media and you've got great brand awareness, then you're going to get more of the gigs. You're going to get more of the slots. Venues, promoters are going to take you seriously because, again, a very competitive space. Lots of bands and artists are out there all competing for the same stage time. And so what can really differentiate you is if you have a crowd. There might be other bands who might be better than you, but you'll get the gigs because you've got the audience. Remember, the vendor and the venue they're not selling music per se. What they're selling is warm bodies in there drinking beer. Yep. To them, like I used to say to people when I'd get original artists who would come and criticize me for running cover bands, and I'd say, hey, listen, man, I'm just a glorified jukebox. I'm here to sell Bud Light. I'm not here to, I'm with you offline. We can talk about your music all day long. I'd love to hear your CD. But when it comes to what we've got to do to make money, I need bodies in the door. If you can't bring me bodies in the door, I can't put you on that stage.
Right.
So if somebody's got that following, they can do that. Absolutely.
I mean, I think that's probably the easiest sell ever. And that's why I've actually built my career backwards in a sense. For one reason I had to, because I couldn't be a touring musician with 5 little kids at home and homeschooling, all that. Although we're now that they're a little older, we're extremely mobile. Like we spent 5 months kind of going through Ireland and the UK, and we were able to bring our kids and they were doing homeschool on their computers. So, hey, never say never. I definitely plan on touring one day. But the other reason, I just saw the advantage of being able to build my fan base online first and basically create a demand before I ever go on tour. So that when I do tour, I'm going to be able to sell out my shows, and I'll also create more opportunity because now I've actually made a name for myself. If I want to get on like a bigger tour with maybe a much bigger band than me, they probably have heard of me by now. Right. So the opportunities it's going to create for me in the long run by having built my fan base online, by having a huge email list, by having a YouTube audience, by having an Instagram audience and all of this, it's only going to benefit me in the future for anything I want to do.
Tell me, you mentioned something a little while ago about scaling. And I know that's one of the benefits that somebody can explain what that means.
Right. So scaling just means that whatever little thing you're doing that's working, if you add more budget to it, you can increase the results of that current result. So that means, for example, anything I'm doing online, say, let's talk about my opt-in ad right now, that's really cheap. I'm adding new people to my email list every single day. If I want to scale the ad and it's working well, I can add more budget to it and it will get more people on my list.
Right.
So I can do that with advertising. I can do that with email. I can do that with, mostly it's an advertising scenario. That's usually when we're talking about scaling something, we're referring to advertising, but you can apply it to other things as well. The point is that when, you can't scale something that's not working, you can only scale something that's already working. It will only, so that's why I don't recommend boosting posts. I know there's other competitors out there that actually tell people to boost posts. And I'm like, dude, you do not run a large business then, because, or maybe even a small one, because you wouldn't be telling people that. Because again, it's like boosting posts is only going to force people to see something that the algorithm already deemed was not worth showing people.
Right.
So why would you throw money at that?
Yeah. And I think, Leah, in all honesty, the average band or musician that has a Facebook page and a little website and what have you, and is doing their best to be an original artist, probably when they think of what we're talking about, they think, well, that means I got to boost posts, because that's the button they see on their little, they see those buttons.
I mean, Facebook.
They've never been in the ad
cash
manager.
Machine.
You know what I mean?
That's right. Oh, yeah. I mean, and that little boost post button, that's just a little ATM for Facebook.
Yeah.
That's not really going to help. That's not real advertising. There's so many limitations to it. That's literally just going to force it into the news feed. And by the way, there are rumors, and not just rumors, there are reports that the news feed as we know it right now is going to be going away. And like the top, I think Facebook's news feed guy, I forget his name, but he's actually left Facebook now. He's gone. And the news feed as we know it is going away. We don't really know exactly. It looks like it's going to become more and more like Facebook stories, where it's going to be not vertical, but like a horizontal kind of experience, swiping left and right sort of thing. We don't know exactly what it looks like, but the bottom line is that it's going to be ever changing. We don't know exactly, and you have to be able to adapt. And this is why you need to know the ads manager, and you don't want to be boosting posts. Like, it's, who knows if that feature is going to be there, and then what are people going to do? So you have to be adaptable. You have to be on your toes. You need the latest information. And that's not something you can get even at marketing school. I heard a stat the other day that said when a university course is launched or released, by year 3, that information is obsolete. It's literally irrelevant, and especially in the marketing world. So that's why I tell people, yeah, you can go to Berkeley online and spend $20,000 to $50,000 on a music marketing degree that will be completely irrelevant to you. Or you can work with us and we actually give you the latest and greatest information. And I think that's a huge decision, or part of the decision becoming an online musician is understanding that means, what does that even mean in terms of your headspace, your mindset around this? It means you have to be open to constant change. And that's something people are not always prepared for. Constant change. Especially with technology, things are changing so fast. Like I just said, the news feed is going to, as we know it, is going to be going away. They're replacing it with a different kind of format. They're already making changes right now. And I just saw some new things on my mobile news feed yesterday. They're different. They're really heavily promoting groups and all that sort of thing. But adaptability and knowing what the latest trends are, where things are going, and going, hey, cool, they made a change. How can I make that work for me? Instead of freaking out. And I think all the bands out there that are not willing to be adaptable and not willing to be a student of it, they're gonna seriously lose out. They're gonna leave tens of thousands of dollars on the table over the course of a year or two, and they're just gonna hurt their music business. So I think you've got to have an attitude of adaptability. Yeah,
and these things that we don't know will hurt us in the long run, and people are, somewhat embittered when it comes to things like social media, especially Facebook. Facebook obviously gets a lot of heat, some of it deserved, but yeah, I mean, these are the things where we are forced to adapt, because we can say, okay, well, now I'm just going to get off online. Well, fine. Well, now what?
Right. Now you're back to gigs and playing in front of 30 people and hoping that somebody buys an album.
Yeah. So you don't have a choice. I mean, there's the fact that you have to move forward into this online space. So better to be equipped, better to put the emotional reaction aside and just say, okay, well, let me see how I can start to master this. And again, going back to what you said about scaling, is if you can get some of these basic components down, how to properly run a Facebook page, how to run some basic ads as opposed to boosting posts, how to engage with your followers, what kind of posts, learning the culture and all of the things that you talk about, Leah. Just those simple things alone would so revolutionize the average musician's, I hate to say profession because they're still working on it, but it's, you know what I mean? What they're doing musically would be so enhanced.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, where we are, and this is about making the decision to become an online musician. We're really laying the groundwork, and not just me, but we have lots of other colleagues out there in the music industry and business, people I've never heard of before, people I haven't met, but we're laying a groundwork here in the marketplace in general for a kind of a collective awareness of the fact that they even need to make this decision to add this online component and to become wise and become an entrepreneur in some sense. And I was explaining in our staff meeting yesterday, just to our, I have to cast vision a little bit for our side musician team. And I was just telling them, listen, guys, there's a book called Crossing the Chasm, and it's all about, it was more a book written for technological trends in marketplaces, but it's so applicable to what we're seeing right now. And there's basically a bell curve in market awareness of something. We're at the very, very bottom of the curve where people don't even realize that they need to make this decision to become an online musician, to add this component, that they should be leveraging their time and their talent and learning a new skill set here. 5 to 10 years from now, I believe that every musician will be a digital marketer. I believe that. Then that will be what we call kind of there's going to be a general awareness. Right now, people who are studying with us and learning right now, they're what we would call the early adopters. Right. They're also probably the same people that go out and buy the new iPhone and they don't care that it has bugs. They don't really care. They're going to just get it. They stand in line for 24 hours to get access to the latest technology because they want the latest and the greatest. 99% of musicians, I would say, are not these people. So the people in our programs are way ahead of the game, way, way, way ahead. And 10 years from now, they'll be making a lot more money than anybody else. But 10 years from now, most musicians will know that they should be doing this. And by then, it's going to be a very crowded, extremely competitive place. Right. So the decision to become an online musician, you'd be very prudent to make that decision now and jump in with 2 feet and say, what do I need to learn? What skills do I need to, learn and create and improve on to get a head start now?
Yeah, I think that's, that has to be heeded as a warning. And so in a sense, guys, you're being called to this. She's beckoning to you to come join because she wants you to do well. She wants you to thrive. She wants you because you can do it. She did it. And that's the important point. So you got to believe it's possible, right? These are all the misconceptions that we have. And why don't you address some of those? When you try to explain this sort of thing, what do people normally misunderstand about it?
I think, with some of our students, I've heard complaints about, I didn't know it was going to cost me, this tool and that tool and these, ongoing monthly expenses and everything. And I'm going, what are you even complaining about? This is, first of all, this is a business. If you're running a McDonald's or any kind of business, you're going to have expenses. What did you think this was? This is not, entertainment where you just sit back and relax and let things happen to you. This is a proactive business minded approach. So yes, you're going to have tools, you're going to have landing pages, you're going to need website hosting, you're going to have you're going to need a little advertising budget, but it is so much less expensive than the alternative or compared to the old school model. What were our options before the internet? That's my question. And what would it cost to get on the radio? What would it cost to go on tour? It's still extremely expensive. What would it cost to like get a billboard or a TV spot? Tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on the venue. You know, it is so less expensive. I mean, the fact that I can run a Facebook ad for $10 a day and get 50 people to join my email list that day, incredible. You don't even appreciate how inexpensive this is. So that's one thing. It's a huge thing I always want to address. And I always tell our students, don't cheap out on crappy tools and try to get everything for free online. It will hurt your business. You know, sell an extra pair of shoes in your closet on bidding wars on Facebook. Do what you got to do. Get that extra $50 a month so you can get proper tools. Like really, you're creative. Think outside the box. I don't really have a lot of tolerance for people who say they can't afford these tools. You can. You're just spending your money somewhere else, or you have a bunch of crap that you don't want to sell and you're lazy. So, you know, you got to just say it the way it is. You know, it's very inexpensive.
Now, what about time? I mean, that's a big deal, right? How much time is this going to take, Leah?
Yeah, it does take time. Absolutely. I mean, do you ask yourself that question when you want to learn an instrument or do anything? I mean, yeah, it's going to take time. Like I want to, if you want a 6-pack of abs, is that going to happen in a week? No, that's going to take some time, and it's going to take consistency and dedication and not falling off the wagon and a whole lot of other things. It's the same thing with anything, right? Yes, it's going to take time. But again, the advantage of being an online musician is the time leverage you get. So again, I'm not out there. I'm not even talking to a single person, and yet they're joining my email list, listening to music and buying stuff. You know, I think I made $500 by the time it was 10 o'clock this morning. So without talking to a single person or having to leave my house, I was still in my pajamas. I was doing my workout this morning and sales were rolling in. So, you know, time consuming. Yeah, it takes a little time especially the learning curve to learn how to do this stuff. But once you know it, I mean, think of all the time I'm saving now and think of the leverage I'm getting. So that's really amazing.
So now this is something that I see a lot, Leah, is people think, oh, well, you know, it's going to work for her because she's this or she has that or what have you. Does this work for everybody? Or are they just going to keep comparing themselves to you?
Yeah, I think sometimes people do. And I think more even so our students who know me think, well, Leah's successful because she has this really special little niche and everything. And I admit, I have kind of carved out something unique and special. But I encourage everybody to do that. I mean, this goes back to branding and some of the episodes we've talked about in the last few episodes here. You know, I've created it's the red ocean, blue ocean. I don't know if you guys have read that book. The red ocean is where it's very, very crowded and the sharks are feasting and there's blood in the water. The blue ocean is where there's not a whole lot of competition. The sharks aren't really circling and there's a lot of space. And so that's why I like micro niches. That's why I like niching. That's the whole idea behind niche marketing. And so I would say, besides the fact that, yes, I worked very hard to find a blue ocean for my music and get into a niche based on what my fans were telling me and feedback and all that. But I would say outside of that, you guys, I've had every disadvantage that you could have when it comes to building a brand. And you might look at me and say, she's so successful, so it's easy for her. I was not successful before. Like I said, some of you guys know my story, but I had no connection in the music industry whatsoever. I had no fans. I had one album really that I had, help creating. I had babies in diapers. I sang that first album like 9 months pregnant with very limited diaphragm space and no extra budget. Like I was doing this. It took me 2 years to make that album because I would record it on the weekends when my husband could watch the kids when he was home from his construction job. And that was the only time I could do it. Right. So I had no advantage in the music industry. I didn't even know anything about business. I knew nothing about it. So I would say if it worked for me, it can work for anybody, because I guarantee you, most of you don't have 5 kids. Most of you aren't homeschooling. Most of you have more time on your hands than I did. And I just didn't have any extra helps, guys. So
you didn't even have a band members to do anything.
No, there you go. No, yeah, exactly. So I had to compose everything. I had to hire people. I had to do, and I did it on a shoestring budget. I've had an enormous challenge in front of me to accomplish everything I have. But it also served as an advantage in that I was forced to bootstrap. And I think bootstrapping, there's entire books in the business world written about bootstrapping and what a useful, advantageous situation that is. When you are forced to bootstrap it, I mean, there's something psychologically, especially if you are all in and you have that switch turned on that says, I'm going to succeed no matter what. If you have that switch turned on, nothing can stop you. And that's what I'm looking for in working with people. I'm really not interested in working with people who are like, I kind of want to pursue this, but not, it's just this little thing on the side. I'm not really all in. You're never going to see results. You have to have that switch turned on where you're almost mad, like you almost have to get a little angry and have a little bit of aggression behind your decision. Just like, I'm angry that I haven't seen results and I'm going to find out how to make it happen. That's what happened to me. And long before Savvy Musician Academy was created, I remember sitting in a chair in the living room and Steve telling me, we were just advised by the government. The government told us, because we're so far behind in taxes, that we should file bankruptcy. When the government advises you to file bankruptcy because of your taxes, it's bad. And I just looked at it. I was so angry, not at him, but just the situation. I was just like, because I knew it was bad. Canadian government, by the way, pretty much rapes businesses who, we were very lower middle class, one income household. And it was like pay for groceries or pay taxes. Which one are we going to do? Well, we have kids to feed. So I got angry in that moment. I said, like hell, are we going bankrupt? That will not happen. So a switch turned on in me and I said, I will find a way. I will find a way to use whatever gift is inside of me, whatever I have, whatever I can do at home. I will take this little and I will turn it into much. I don't know how. And I made a decision. My first decision, I'm going to make $100,000 with my music and I'm going to somehow figure out how I'm going to do that. I just think if I know there will be expenses. I know that, that might not all be profit, but I'm going to figure out how to make $100,000. So I made a decision out of anger and frustration in a good way, in an aggressive way, that I'm going to change our family situation and I'm going to do it with my music. And from that moment on, it happened. Literally months later, I started making an incredible progress with my music just by using social media. This is before I knew anything about advertising. And just putting in the effort, making the decision, declaring a number, saying, this is the number I'm going to hit. And I will reverse engineer how it's going to happen. That changed everything. It changed our entire lives. So that's the story behind how Savvy Musician even ever came about, guys.
Wow. I don't even want to add it because I want people to just meditate on what you just said, because this whole episode is about deciding to become an online musician. And the key thing of what you said was you were brought to that place where you had to make that decision. This is what I'm going to do. Now, you didn't have necessarily a Savvy Musician Academy to lean on. It was double. You described doing all this on your own, being pregnant, struggling financially. So let's add to it the fact that you don't have any resources to figure out how to do this. And so this is several years ago. And so look at where social media was at that time. So to be able to do this now and for someone to make that decision now, it's so much better to make that decision now. And before things change too much and everybody starts crowding this online space, now is the best time, guys. Now is the best time for you to decide to become an online musician. What action step would you give them, Leah?
Well, today, if you haven't fully committed to yourself, your music, your career, I want you to make that decision right now. There's some sayings out there, crap or get off the pot, whatever you want to say, but it's just like, make the decision. Are you all in or are you out?